Welcome to another episode of Tech Society, a bi-weekly podcast that offers a cohesive picture of what's happening in the ever-changing world of technology and modern society. And now your hosts, Alex Dunmo and John Newman.
And before we begin this episode, if you think tech can solve a problem for you, go and check out njs.dev. Ninja Software has Perth's top locally and homegrown software engineering and design talent, focusing on bespoke software for your vision.
All right, welcome to episode number 80 of Tech Society. Thank you for joining us.
This is where we review the last 8 episodes.
And the tech news that interests us, that most people probably haven't heard about.
Yeah, over the last few months, every 10 episodes, almost 3 months, and a lot of cool stuff has happened in that time.
All right, let's jump in. Really recent news is NASA landed a new rover on Mars, which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I think what a lot of people don't realize is that it actually comes with a drone, with an actual flying drone. So we are going to be flying. We're going to do our first flight on another planet, which is pretty cool.
That is cool, especially since you think that air is so thin, to get enough lift. I think we'll see what happens pretty soon. So here it says here, NASA lays out plans for its first flights on Mars.
Yeah.
5 flights over the course of a month. So, and some cool stuff. Inside on that craft, there will be some fabric from the Wright brothers' first plane.
Following their first powered flight on Earth, which is, it's going to be the first powered flight on Mars, they needed to build improved versions and they didn't have the funds. So they sold little squares of fabric from that first airplane. And that's how they funded the improved versions. And so one of those squares will actually be carried aloft on the drone. So technically a piece of the first powered flight on Earth will be on the first powered flight on Mars, which I think that's really cool.
Super cool.
News out of Russia with Apple is that Apple has actually bent its rules for Russia, which is unusual because Apple rarely gives in to nation states. They're actually probably one of the only tech companies to really tell the US government no. This is not a cybersecurity related thing though. What they've done is now new Russian iPhone buyers will actually be prompted to install Russian software. So Russian built software rather than, I guess, the standard US tech that we all install as soon as we start our iPhones.
So what kind of apps would they be asking for though? I mean, everything's American today.
Well, no, when you set up your new iPhone, it'll come up with a list that recommends Russian software.
Wow.
Yeah, I reckon, I think it's the start of something. I think we'll see a lot of countries actually push Apple and probably Google for the same thing. There is a real fear that the US dominates tech so dramatically, much to the detriment of the rest of the world, right?
I think you find that like bloatware is a thing already outside of Apple. So Samsung phones come with all sorts of...
Oh, but I guess why install Spotify when you can install Ruskify?
And superior technology, more lean, more efficient.
No, I mean, probably not. But like, at least, if you subscribe to a Russian music service, then your money's not leaving Russia. Or if you support an Australian music service, let's say
The Pack.
Thank you. Then you're supporting local Australian artists and local Australian software builders. That's
so it's actually
I think it's a good thing to keep your money. Yeah, I think Russia's actually onto something. I'm sure it comes from a nationalistic thing.
I was about to say, when people see this as an invasion of their device?
I mean, they're not really. It's not doing anything shady at this point. I would hope that Apple are the ones building this pre-installed software, but probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah. So
I mean, you can just look at Xiaomi phones, right?
Yeah.
They come with a lot of Apple equivalent software,
and I'm sure they, at least in China, come bundled with Chinese government sponsored apps. And I think the reason Apple allowed this to happen is because they were going to be banned from the market entirely. So I guess they made the economic decision that it was worth
moving away from its
hard stance against saying no. But I think this will set a precedent. And we'll probably see that in other countries. I doubt we'll ever see that in Australia, though. Even though we have a pretty strong ecosystem of software developers, I just don't see our government, taking that kind of hard line. Although, if it meant they could pre-install some spying software, I'm sure ASIO would be quite happy to.
They wouldn't do that.
What else is in the news?
Telegram, the amazingly popular instant messaging platform.
Not popular enough. I'll speak for you and the entire Ninja Software team, but I think this is our favorite chat app, Telegram. We use it not for chat operations, not the kind of thing that Slack or Discord are good for, or Teams, but just chat, right? So, the guys will chat over the weekend. They do it over Telegram, and Telegram's been entirely free, ad-free, since its inception. I'd say it's the best, most well-built chat software. Super fast and responsive, beautiful user experience.
It's feature-packed too. I think you'd find all sorts of interesting functions that...
video chat.
They just added phone calls and video chat now. Yeah. Just things like scheduled messages.
Yeah.
Things like bot integration is
it's phenomenal.
It's world-class.
Yeah. And also now they've got like channels, where you can actually kind of one-way broadcasts, which a lot of people are getting rich through.
A lot of projects run through Telegram. Well, let's jump into the news. So, Telegram has raised over $1 billion from multiple investors,
which is crazy. $1 billion. I mean, what's really crazy to me is that this news kind of flew under the radar. I don't think there's many. Do we count them as a startup? They've been around for a while, but they've never raised money before. Now they've raised $1 billion.
Let's not forget that WhatsApp sold for $19 billion. So 19 times more than Telegram.
Currently have 500 million monthly active users, which is pretty impressive, 500 million users. But so many people in Australia haven't even heard of Telegram. Yeah, $1 billion. I think they have some big plans to monetize the platform, which will be interesting. I'm really curious to see how they do that. My hope is that they build an enterprise version that replaces Slack and Teams and brings the quality of their software to the business space. Because, to be honest, I mean, we use Discord, and it's good, but Telegram would be better.
Oh, man. Telegram has a entire payments gateway built into it. It's got something called Telegram Passport, which is like a ID that comes with you if you wish to use it.
That's cool.
It's just stuff that you've never thought of in this app.
It feels like it's been built not by a product manager, but by an actual software engineer. And the actual quality of the build of the software speaks to that too. Yeah, well, big fan. I'm a big fan.
Regardless, this is a news episode.
Let's move on.
We love Telegram. Let's push forward to the next one.
All right, so the next one is politics, which I think in a previous episode we said we wouldn't talk much about politics, but we kind of have to. There was a election here in WA. Sorry, there was a bloodbath here in WA with the Labor Party taking full control of the state for the first time, I think, ever, or for a very long time. This means that there was a new cabinet announced, and we now have a new minister, a new IT minister.
Well, he's not just the Minister for IT. He's the Minister for Disability Services, Fisheries, Innovation, and ICT, Seniors, and Aging.
So I really want to talk about this. And generally, I don't like talking about local politics because you never want to upset anyone. So the new new Fisheries Minister and Disability Services Minister and Seniors and Aging Minister is Don Punch, who is the member for Bunbury. He will replace Dave Kelly, who will no longer be the IT minister, but holds on to his portfolios of water, forestry, and youth. And science will fall to Roger Cook, who I got to say I'm actually a bit disappointed that Roger didn't take the IT portfolio.
He just cares about tech in WA.
I feel like the government are not truly invested in tech and innovation. And I think that's not a failing of the government. It's a failing of the industry. And we have not advocated strongly enough to put us, obviously we're not going to be in the same league as mining, but somewhere close to that. Because technology is not just the future, it's now, it's the present. So Mike Cannon-Brookes says, if you're not a technology company or a software company, you will be. So everything will be, software run, data driven, etc., etc. So I feel this portfolio should be the only portfolio for one minister. Like I think it's that important. Of course I do. We're in this industry, right?
Yeah. We don't know Don Punch.
No, I have not done any research on Don.
No opinions today. on what he's done or what he will do as the minister. But we
would love to have him on the show where we can actually discuss the importance of ICT and innovation. Maybe show him some cool stuff that's happening in the state. He will realize that he's been given a really cool portfolio. We formally send an invitation to Don Punch. Come speak to us. We would love to hear your views on your new portfolio, and we wish you the best. Welcome to the Madhouse. All right, so episode 71.
Yeah, we met Greg raising the bar, and we called it the path to startup success.
So we encountered Greg, or you encountered Greg first on Reddit.
That's right. He was shooting out some great advice,
honest and upfront advice to startup founders, right?
And the great thing about Reddit, or Reddit in general, is that you don't actually realize who he is. His username was just grays, right? And right. No avatar. You can't. His comments look the same importance as everyone else's.
Yeah.
But I spotted it, and I sent him a message, and at first he wanted to see how far Tech Society will go.
Yeah, that's right. We were, when we first reached out to him, we basically weren't big enough and probably not polished enough. Honestly, I think we didn't even have custom thumbnails back then, right? It was just like Tech Society logo.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was really, really early days.
Yeah, but he eventually agreed to come on, and it was really good. He spoke about his journey as someone who ran a software company.
Yeah,
and the process of actually moving out of that.
It was really cool to get the insight of someone who's done what we're trying to do. Build a very successful software company, and potentially exit, and then go on to help further startups and other tech companies and become an evangelist.
Yeah, just become a believer in being the change for the ecosystem.
I think just debunking the myth that it's all about hustle. I think hustle is important, but really making sure you're heading in the right direction. And to kind of your book comment earlier, start with why is an important one as well. A lot of people will hustle and be like, hey, I can go sell Pokemon cards or make money on the stock market or do it. Like there are a lot of ways you can make money, but if you're going to be an entrepreneur, it's not just about the job, it's about the why. Like, why do you want to start a company beyond the money? And the money is important, but for your company to have long-term meaning, starting a company is, for most people, a 10-year journey. Again, certainly, people can start a company and sell it the following year, but for most people, it's a 10-year journey. So starting that journey with a real good foundation of why this is going to be a central focus for your life for the next 10 years, I think is really important for people to understand.
What common mistakes do you see these startup founders making with their pitches to you?
The most common mistakes is that they don't have all the core elements, and the core elements of a pitch are really well documented. And so just kind of there's a lot of formulas for how to do it. Like, what is the problem? What is the solution? What is the target market that you're trying to solve? What is the traction? What is the team? And again, there's lots of examples. They'll say, oh, you should include a slide on X or you should include a slide on Y. But there's a lot of slide decks that I see where they just start talking about the product without really helping me understand what problem, like, why does this company need to exist? Or there's no team slide at all. So I'm like, okay, like I just got a pitch deck from an email address. I don't recognize it. There's no description. Like, why are you the right founder to go start this company? And again, like, if you're in high school, you don't have the background, you don't have a resume, you don't have prior experience, like, I'm going to find that out anyways. You may as well just say, like, hey, I'm 15, like, I'm trying to start this company. Just like, be who you are. You're not going to hide those types of things from an investor. So just follow the formula of, problem, solution, market, team, traction, product, those things are well said. If you follow some of those formulas, that will help you get further. And the other kind of common thing, I was on a Clubhouse chat earlier today that was talking about this, is like, be selective about who you're reaching out to. Like, don't just go to LinkedIn or Reddit or wherever and like, let me search for all the angel investors and just send 100 DMs. Like, okay, maybe that'll work. I don't know. If you're if you're selective and you know, like, okay, I need investors who have experience in e-commerce and footwear, and they've either worked at Under Armour or Nike, and they have this experience doing X, Y, and Z because my business could benefit from that. You're going to have a much higher hit rate, A, from just the selection, but B, kind of when you reach out, rather than like a cold, like, hey, throw it over the wall, be like, hey, I specifically sought you out because you have this background, and would you have 10 minutes to take a look at my pitch and give me feedback, tell me what you think? Much higher likelihood because it's targeted as opposed to like, spray and pray.
In episode 72, we spoke to Mark Stickles from the supercomputing, the Pawsey Supercomputing Center. He's the executive director, as I said, and he has been pushing really hard from a non-technical side change.
Our interview with Mark was really interesting. Obviously we're into supercomputers. It's really cool. He shared with us his vision in this space, and it was really interesting just finding out things you don't really think about when you think about supercomputers, like diversity. So he had that cool analogy that when he started, there were more Marks than women, which he has rectified by firing all the Marks. No, by hiring more women and increasing diversity in Pawsey, which is really cool. But finding out about the potential of the center and how they were expanding and becoming bigger and better, really interesting.
I want to ask you some stuff about Pawsey and its diversity angle, because we're in tech, we're in software, and
a lot of dudes.
Yeah, a lot of dudes.
A lot of dudes.
Well, how does Pawsey tackle this problem?
It is something I thought about when I joined Pawsey, and in fact, my first public address at an industry conference, I got up and said, "There's more people named Mark at Pawsey than there are women." So, and we had lots of Marks, and I didn't subsequently sack a few of them to help our numbers. They're great people, and I'm happy to be one of them. But we've made a concerted effort to recruit women and people with diverse cultural and other backgrounds to be a more inclusive workforce. And over the last 2 years, I think our number of, just as one measure, women has gone from sort of 10% to 25%. So that statistic of more men named Mark than women is no longer a fact, I'm pleased to say.
What's been the most challenging things for you in this role?
I think at the outset you asked me questions about sort of being a non-technologist in a technology business, and I think that was, I've led other initiatives before, and this one, the scale of this one was a challenge. This was new to me to run a venture with this many people and to actually see the technology. I could see and touch the technology. So I think
they let you touch it?
Not really. I can open up a cabinet and show you the secret behind a supercomputer is not actually the blinky lights at the front, it's the interconnect behind it.
You can't press the big red button.
Don't touch the big red buttons because that'll kill the power to the building. You've clearly had my tour of the white space. So it's an expert organisation. Lots of smart. Some people have been involved for decades in this space. So I do not have their deep expertise, but I understand our stakeholders, I understand the governance environment, I understand the challenges that we have.
All right, in episode 73, we had an episode that we called Lockdown Economics. We interviewed Stephen Shepherd, a very accomplished economist who has given advice to countless governments, it feels. And we had to speak to him because of the pandemic that we live in today, and how Perth is relatively COVID-free.
Yeah.
But we still have this unusual government subsidy called JobKeeper. And what will happen? Like, what?
How does that affect macroeconomics?
That's right. And he has some great insights for us.
That was a really fun one. It was great. I mean, how often do you get to speak to an economist? Like, I don't know any economists.
Yeah.
It was really cool. We got to use our platform to basically just ask questions that as business owners and people who live in a society, we were curious about. And Stephen's take was one based on decades of experience. With the international students, I think that's heavily been affected by COVID. Will that have an impact on the greater economy as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It will. There's going to be a significant loss of revenue to Australian education institutions. And you see that a lot of the major education institutions in Australia have had to start to downsize, and they're doing all kinds of things of looking at how they can offset the loss of revenue from overseas students. So I'd imagine those trends are going to stay for a while. But obviously, once things settle down, then I could see it bouncing back really quickly. And the positive for Australia, if the perspective of the international marketplace is that we've probably managed COVID virtually better than anywhere else, that's going to be a net positive for the Australian educational sector, because people think, well, the potential risks associated with the pandemic are going to be significantly less than they in Australia than what they are overseas. And just on that score, I've been reading articles about a number of sort of like Hollywood actors, etc., that have been effectively been migrating to Australia and this environment, because, you know, in the United States, when you're getting 100,000 cases a day and no one seems to be too perturbed by that, compared in Australia the other day we had, 0 for the whole country. That's a dramatic difference.
Episode 74, we titled this one Right Space, Right Time, and we had the opportunity to interview Brodie McCulloch,
who's the founder of Space Cubed, which is I would say the biggest and set the trend co-working space in Perth. And I would say it's the center in some ways of the startup community here in Perth.
Yeah, it was a real trailblazer in that regard.
Yeah.
We asked him about, what really started the whole Space Cube concept, and all the way through to recent times where he was actually trying to
run for
Lord Mayor of Perth. Yeah.
Which he lost, but he did come a very convincing second. And that was really interesting, getting his experience there. I mean, it certainly put me off running for Lord Mayor. Not that I'd planned on. Is it a requirement that they are members of Space Cubed?
No, it's anyone. So we've had all sorts of companies that have gone through that. I mean, hopefully once they grow, they stay with us and take space from us. But at the end of the day, that is about supporting the local Perth community. I think it's been so successful because it is the only sort of funded accelerator program in Perth, which means that if you're looking for seed funding in Perth, that's the place to go.
Because that's a difficult thing to do in Perth, right?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. And I think now, I'm having a lot less people come and, they'll spend $100,000 developing an idea they haven't spoken to anyone about. That's happening a lot less, which I think is good. People they can go to a startup weekend, they can go along to a workshop, they can talk with other founders at a morning startup event. There's sort of the whole network of support where you can learn rather than making the mistakes yourself. You'll still make plenty of mistakes yourself, that's guaranteed.
It's inevitable. Yeah.
It's going to happen, but the key thing is you can learn through what others are doing, and that network just didn't exist 10 years ago. You couldn't have done that. You would have had to learn on your own. So I think that's the key thing for me is we've got that network of support, which means that there's companies getting to the sort of top of that funnel that are ready for investment. I think now more than ever, if you've got a good idea and you've got the right skills, the right team to make something of that, there's investment available. There's people who are going to invest in your business, whether that's high net worth or now we've got things like RAC Better Labs is investing $23 million into startups and innovation. That just didn't exist even 4 or 5 years ago. So if you've got an idea, there's better chance now than ever to get that investment and support to grow it.
All right, episode 75. So we spoke to Charlotte Pillai from the Rumi initiative. It made me think about, when I was young, and there's so many things that I didn't know, and I kind of just worked it out on the way.
Like brute force.
Yeah. And then while I was speaking to Trish, I jumped onto the Rumi app, and it gave me some advice about what do you need to do to move out.
That's right. I remember that one too. Yeah, that
I was like, damn, that would be so useful to know.
Like a checklist of what do I need to do.
Yeah, it's like a 9-minute video, and they're just like, make sure you, I don't know, bring some toilet paper.
I was gonna say, do you remember moving into your first apartment alone, and you're like, oh yeah, I need plates.
Yes, right. I've got like one fork. It's like things that aren't taught. You kind of just work it out. This is something that the Rumi initiative is trying to solve.
Well, I love that micro learning. So, little life lessons that, as you say, most people have to experience to learn. And, they're trying to provide it in bite-sized chunks.
Yeah, and there's an appetite for this.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and check out the app, Rumi app. And the app itself is super polished. The content is great.
It's really cool. Where they're going with AI to increase the scope and really bring home the concept is really cool. Like they're definitely, I would say, trendsetters in this space. I mean, I haven't encountered it before, and I was really impressed. browsing through it, it feels kind of like if you
Netflix.
like an older brother or
Yeah.
older sister who's like, this one, what should I consider before I move out on my own? So
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing
So
you only get
that's the
that
thing,
knowledge from.
For sure. So it's very rooted in like call to actions. The goal is to really build a tool where someone can learn something that's life changing in under 9 minutes, but they know exactly where to start after they've, applying it to their life after they finish completing that bite.
All right, episode 76. We have VR Partners in Crime. We interviewed two people, Dr. Paola Magni and Jeffrey Aslin.
Yeah, this was cool. They're building a VR training tool for CSI, crime scene investigations.
It's basically when in the movies there's a murder, and then at the murder scene there's a guy with a camera, takes a photo, and it makes that capacitor noise after the flash.
Well, I think this is really focused on bugs, right? So they have to in the VR pull the bugs off.
But ultimately, you come to the crime scene, and then you have a team, and then everyone needs to do everything right because there's no second chances. The body will start decomposing. Yeah, there's really cool stuff that I watch crime TV,
of course.
But now I can live it, I suppose.
Yeah, I really hope that this actually leaves the classroom and becomes an actual consumer focused game, because I think it would be really fun to play. Also, really cool to see educators being innovative, which I don't think is the norm. So yeah, I was super impressed.
So having the training in a situation like that, the critical thinking already done, having that experience in virtual reality, in 3D, you learn these things because they become part of your personal experience, not something that you read and you forget because it's one of the many things that you read, but it's something that you experienced. So you can critical think better.
That's what makes this project unique. It's not just a game. It's more than a game.
It's a simulation.
It's a very serious tool that is going to hopefully train some of the best forensics students in the world in the future.
Yeah.
So, that for me, that's kind of the value add to our project. We're not just coming from a gaming side of things. Our strengths are coming from academia and training.
So episode 77 was again with Dr. Paola Magni. We just talked about her actual experiences as a crime scene investigator, which is super interesting. Didn't really fit the general theme of tech society, but it was fun. It was fun talking about beetles and murders and all kinds of cool stuff.
Well, we did speak to Paola in the episode previous, but she let out like tiny snippets,
little nuggets, and we're like, I need to find out more about this.
She just mentioned on the side, there's a bear in the mountains, and it worked out.
We almost became a crime scene / murder podcast that day.
So we brought it back.
Around the mouse there were a bunch of flies and cocoons of flies, so puparia, so the open cocoons. And I said, okay, let's have a look if this mouse was killed by this bang on his head or by something else. So I used the puparia for toxicological analysis. The idea is that if the mouse was poisoned, the fly eat the dead mouse, the fly will get the poison themselves.
I know that too.
So it's a food chain kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's the reason why pregnant women should not eat fish, because they are full of mercurium that comes from other fish they eat, blah, blah, blah.
All right. So episode 78 with Patrick Lee, the co-founder of Rotten Tomatoes, which I'm a massive fan of and have been for years. It's stopped me from watching many shitty movies.
Though if I did follow Rotten Tomatoes, I would never have watched Transformers. So I would have been very sad if I missed that movie.
Patrick was really cool.
Yeah, he gave us some before, during, and after Rotten Tomatoes.
It's really interesting to get in the head of a serial entrepreneur. He obviously loves doing his own thing and loves technology innovation, and it really showed. And really smart dude, and I'm really curious to see what he does in the future.
Entrepreneurs, by their nature, they believe that they can do anything, and so the problem with that though is, which it's a good thing, but the problem is they also believe that they end up doing everything, and they'll end up like, people say, "Can you do this? Can you do that?" And they're like, "Yes, yes, yes," but that's actually a bad trait, and they end up doing too much, and they end up becoming very unfocused very quickly. And this is a problem that, like, I don't even know, 99 or 99.9% of all founders have this problem. And when you try and do too much too early, you will die. Like your startup is going to fail.
So that was episode 80 of Tech Society.
Yeah.
Bunch of cool news stories and a recap of all the recent episodes.
And so we also have some news, Tech Society news. So we're going to bring in a new format, a bit more fun, a bit shorter. We're going to still continue with the long form interviews, but they're only going to be once a fortnight. And then on the other week, there'll be the new format, which we're not going to go into just yet. We're just going to release it on you and you can experience it. But it'll have a bit more punch. You got that to look forward to.
Yeah, so thanks for your support so far.
And hopefully we'll have Don Punch on the show soon. So yeah, hit us up, Don. We would love to talk. You've made it to the end of another episode of Tech Society. Thanks for listening.
On this month in tech history, March 31, 1999, the hugely successful motion picture The Matrix is released on this day. Some call it a classic, some call it influential, but it has had a huge impact on society, on its emerging tech culture, to the movie industry, to sci-fi, to political thinking. The Matrix won 4 Oscars on a small budget of $63 million, grossing over $463 million.